Disinformation knows no borders, and today the stakes seem higher than ever. Welcome to Truth Talks, a bold podcast series tackling the challenges of fake news and propaganda head-on. Join us for engaging short conversations with experts from all EU member states and Ukraine as we uncover the truth behind dominant disinformation trends and explore the strategies shaping Europe's fight against manipulation. In this episode, we are zooming in on Slovenia. Today's guest is Anuška Delić, founder and editor-in-chief at Ostro, a center for investigative journalism in the Adriatic region. Welcome to Truth Talks.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Our pleasure. With its dynamic media landscape and high level of digital engagement, Slovenia faces unique challenges in the fight against disinformation. What are the dominant disinformation narratives circulating in Slovenia?
We've been seeing actually in the past probably 2 years the narratives that aim to convince the public that Slovenia is not a safe place to live in, that the capital of Slovenia, Ljubljana, is not a safe place to live in. And within that, there's a lot of anti-migrant hate speech that goes along with it, and so forth. We've also seen, like this fall, small rise in narratives connected to Palestine and specifically migrants from Muslim countries. And then actually what is really also like nationally going on right now is interestingly disinfo narratives on freedom of speech. Which is being characterized.
In the line of Elon Musk and J.D. Vance?
Well, that sometimes gets connected into the narratives, but the main thing is that Slovenia is adopting a new media law. Our current law was adopted in 2005 and was since fixed a few times, but doesn't even recognize digital media.
Our media law in Poland is even older.
Yeah, because of some of the solutions in this it's still a proposed law draft. There have been a lot of disinfo narratives. There is now an ongoing disinfo narrative about what is freedom of speech, in essence, where let's call them agents of disinformation, are claiming that freedom of speech has no limits, like it's absolute, which is something that the US has enshrined in its constitution. But Europe, the European Union, we still adhere to our convention, which means that freedom of speech is limited by other rights, correct? This, I think, does go hand in hand with what's going on in the States, because it seems that, people like Elon Musk and others would like to convince the world globally that freedom of speech is absolute. And so, in that case, it does kind of it marries basically the national need to kind of kick down the draft media law or to use it to spread disinfo on such an important topic that is freedom of speech. So it's quite interesting.
Okay, so who might be the actors that stand behind creating these narratives and spreading them?
Yeah. Well, in Slovenia, the spread, aside from social media, which happens, I think, everywhere, and everyone has their own portals, but in Slovenia, the portals that are behind the most of the misinformation, disinformation that is spread in Slovenia, and our fact-checking department, razkrinkavanje.si, actually catches, are majorly owned by Hungarian businessmen close to, Viktor Orban. So it's hard to say who is the actor here. I mean, clearly the media and the companies are Slovene. And it's also, in their case, it's quite clear that their financing is not really transparent. A few years ago, we investigated digital advertising on disinfo portals, and also tried to assess like how much money the main disinfo portal in Slovenia, Nova24TV.si, is getting from advertising, also other types of advertising. We found reason to believe that it's not enough to produce everything that they're producing. There's also a TV station that has a different owner, but it's the same. I mean, formally a different owner, the same bag of chips. And I think the big question here is actually who is funding disinformation.
Where is the money?
Yeah. And then a big actor in Slovenia, or actors as a group, are politicians. A lot of the times, parliamentary questions are used to help the spread of disinformation. Or something might start on social media, transfer onto into a parliamentary question, usually from somebody from the right side of the political spectrum. And then that would end up on these portals, which are also, I mean, there's no formal affiliation, but it sure looks like they are supporting more the right wing or the right political side than the left. But it's not an empirical fact. So we can say that we assume that they do. Yeah, and then that would end up in that question. And after that, it would end up on the portals and so on. And that's how this gets generated, like nationally. But we do also see a lot of disinfo coming in from abroad. I distinctly remember a case that was published on the front page of this main disinfo portal. That was actually it was published there in the aftermath of like a big disinfo narrative or campaign in the States, and it was stated that children as young as 15 are getting sex operations in a hospital in the States, and so forth. And it was clear then. And then later on, when we investigated actually some of the sources of the sites that they get information from, we of course found a lot of Breitbart news and so forth. But I definitely would say that disinfo portals plus politicians are the main vehicles for disinformation here. Also, some media, unfortunately, like mainstream media, because they fall into the trap sometimes, because they, as in any mainstream media today, journalists are pushed to work more than they can, and nobody actually wants to fund in-depth journalism because they just want to live off advertising and make sure that the administration of media gets fat, but that newsrooms are lean. So there's a lot of a lot of the times, unfortunately, our team has to also fact check something that like a mainstream media published. That's kind of the situation.
The speakers from certain other countries of the European Union mention Russia a lot. Sometimes there are other countries that are being mentioned. And is it the case also in Slovenia with the national actors, or one specific or several specific nation driven disinformation?
So Russia traditionally didn't have a huge influence in Slovenia. And so we've seen some of it, of course, connected to the war in Ukraine, etc. But we have been noticing actually lately, earlier when I spoke about dominant narratives, I forgot to mention that we've actually seen a rise in sharing, disseminating what appeared to be fake speeches of Vladimir Putin. So this is something that we have noticed lately, like recently. But other than that, if something in that realm pops up as disinfo or misinfo, or actually disinfo, sorry, it appears to often be launched to support a certain national debate, right? Not as much to like kind of peddle Russian disinfo, because like I said, traditionally this has not been like an area. It's different, for example, in Serbia, we all used to be in Yugoslavia together. But also through the work of the CCheck, which is a regional Balkan and fact-checking network that we are founders of, we see, even during COVID, we seldomly saw disinfo that was being spread through the border, like via the borders, because Slovenian language is not the same as Croatian, Serbian, Bosnian. So there's a language issue there too. So, for example, we're not really getting a lot of disinfo from Serbia than to Slovenia. That would be kind of, possibly Russian influenced or had like a goal to support some of those policies. But like I said, recently there seems to be more movement here. Yeah.
What is the most widespread fake news in circulation at present in Slovenia?
Aside from what I've mentioned before, specifically freedom of speech related fake news, and the other thing that I mentioned, which is the fake speeches of Vladimir Putin, what we think are fake, that we've also noticed a rise in still Russian propaganda a little bit, but that's very recent, along with these Putin speeches, which seem to be very kind and nice, and they are getting unusually a lot of engagement online or on social media. So we've noticed that, but nothing other than that at this very moment.
So it seems that algorithms are really friendly to this kind of messaging
It's hard to
online. Yeah?
comment on algorithms that you don't have access to, so I can't really
Exactly.
respond to that question.
True. Now I would like to ask about the specificity, the unique character of disinformation landscape in Slovenia. Would you point at anything that is special in your view?
I have to speak now from my own kind of experience, but I've been in journalism for a while before social media too. And in that time, in the year 2008, the main right-wing party here, as the S, ran what was found to be like an illegal election campaign by publishing two free newspapers. One was a weekly and one was a daily. And they were published in the election year of 2008 via, like some companies and some people that appeared not to be connected to anyone. But what happened with these freebies, that was a time when newspaper houses were printing free newspapers because people like read on the subway and but Slovenia doesn't have subways. So the way this was distributed was they were just handed into the mailboxes of people across the country. And in those free newspapers were actually almost the same as what we see today, posted on portals, etc. There was lots of very like insulting speech in there. There was lies, there were fabrications, manipulations, and all like geared towards the opposite political pole, right? To people, lawyers, politicians, business people, whatever, from the other political spectrum. And the authors were like made up names. They were actually, I later found out, I investigated this for many years, and they were actually journalists, but they just put on like fake names for the publications. And I really see them as a prototype for what we see today as disinformation, that is really poisoning the democratic public debate. I mean, maybe it's not exactly what you asked for, and I went very far
Yeah,
into
because do you think
into
it's
the past.
unique?
I think it's unique. I don't remember. I mean, granted, at that time there was lots of free newspapers being published, also in like the UK, which is notorious for its tabloid journalism. But I don't remember. I'm not aware of any other case where they were used as a political campaign, which is exactly what disinformation is used now. I mean, it's politicized and weaponized to be politicized. It's all done under the very undemocratic intention of duping the public. And in that sense, I see those free newspapers as like a perfect prototype for what we are facing now or have been facing. And interestingly, actually, this all started, with the onset of trolls on social media, which happened around 2010, if my memory is not mistaken. And so I'm not going to say that Slovenia is the cradle of disinformation, but just that these free newspapers were really, if you just would have to put them online on social media right now, cut them down to snippets of hate speech, etc., or fake news and lies, and you would get what we are looking at right now, disinformation. Yeah.
Sometimes when I'm asking all these concrete questions, the overall meta story is somewhere away. I think that you mentioned the gist of it, meaning that disinformation has this very undemocratic or anti-democratic goal of duping the public. I think it's the
Yeah. It poisons the
major
public
takeaway.
debate. It poisons the public debate. People don't know who to believe anymore. They do, quote unquote, their own research, which usually is, inadvertently done, willingly or not, to confirm, it's like confirm bias, basically. So it's just, in essence, disinfo about anything, in my view, is there to dismantle the democratic public debate of anything, of any topic. It doesn't have to be Russia, Ukraine war, Israel, even nothing. It's just like any topic you want, you can definitely weaponize it. And it doesn't help that the political circus in any country moved on to the social media. There's no, the government doesn't need to hold a press conference anymore. They can just post it on X, right? So this definitely didn't have the safeguarding of the democratic public debate. That politics now in and of itself is a circus.
Okay, the final question, not to end on this sad note. What's
Oh,
being done to counter disinformation in Slovenia, and what more constructive would you recommend?
so as a longtime journalist, I have to say that something blasphemic, which is like fact checking, should be an integral part of journalism. And I am very sorry that we now have fact checking as a standalone genre. But we do have a fact checking department at Ostro, like I mentioned earlier. And we try to do as much as we can. We also detect trends and produce disinfo analysis on things. For example, what I mentioned earlier, the allegations that Slovenia is not a secure country and Ljubljana not a secure capital, and some other things that we've traced back to like the far right. Essentially, I know you wanted a good note, but I don't have a good note for this because, to be honest, I think until like somebody somewhere finds a way to catch each user of social media or media or whatever, in the very moment they are consuming this information, I don't think we can do much except like put out fires that are multiplying, much faster than we can ever, that is humanely possible to really tackle them. And so until then, I think what we should do all is start working across sectors. I don't think that the fight against disinformation should necessarily be just a media topic and or a political topic. The faster we find a solution that can catch quote unquote, sorry, I mean like that can kind of tell a person, hey, by the way, what you're reading right now is disinfo. I don't think there's much we can do. So
So something like community notes,
eh,
but maybe.
no, not community notes because
Mhm.
they don't catch you. No, because it's way beyond community, and community notes don't work. So the problem is that once a fact checking department publishes a fact check or a fact checking analysis, this info that is the subject of these is gone, replaced by other, etc., etc. So you literally need to catch, like it needs to be in real time, which is at the moment, I don't know, I'm not a technical person enough to know what would be a solution there, but like just in the conceptual world, I think that it's really important to catch a person in the moment and tell them, hey, this is really bad what you're consuming now. Like kind of even for, I mean, we have it for medicine, right? Please consult your doctor before eating this pill. you know. Like, I mean, it's about poor informational diet right now, and how are we going to tackle it? I don't think that journalists or fact checkers or fact checking organizations are enough for that, because we always come after the fact. That's kind of how I see it. Again, I have no idea. I have no idea what can actually be done. I'm just dreaming of a solution that I think is the only possible one at the moment with what we know.
Maybe not a positive note, but
No,
certainly
sorry.
thought-provoking. So,
Yeah, I hope
so
so.
thank you. Thank you
Yeah,
so
maybe
much.
somebody
That
gets
brings
an
us
idea.
Yes, that brings us to the end of our conversation about Slovenian disinformation landscape. Anuška, thank you so much for sharing this.
Thank you too, and thank you for having me again. Yeah.
Truth Talk series is part of the project Guardians of Truth, fact-checking during Poland's EU presidency, which is supported by European Media and Information Fund, managed by Calouste Gulbenkian Foundation.